إبراهيم كان أمة أو كما قال عليه الصلوات والتسليمات. Respected brothers, elders, youngsters, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we send the choicest blessings upon the final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So they've asked me to talk about the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. The time frame is very short, so what I decided that inshallah I will select a few episodes from the life of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, talk about some relevant lessons that may be connected to our situations and our conditions in present times, and inshallah we'll have an interactive session for any questions or concerns that you may have, whether related to the topic or outside the topic, inshallah. So hope that sounds good. Okay, perfect. So I want to begin by talking about the status of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. When we study the Quran, we find that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is mentioned often with the position of being a role model, being one that is the foundation to the deen of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Millata abikum Ibrahim. He's addressing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and us. Allah is addressing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and you and I. And he's saying, Millata abikum Ibrahim. He's saying that your religion is based on the foundations of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And if we study the essence of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, it was that he was surrounded with shirk, with associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People had forgotten about who their creator is. People had forgotten about what the truth is. They forgot about morality and decency, character, ethics, etc. So in the midst of this darkness, the Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ stands up and tells people there's only one God, and there is a code of life, and there's morals and ethics that we have to follow. And this was something that is profound, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says your religion is based on the foundations of the Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ, which refers to Tawheed. One unique thing about the Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ is that he's one of those prophets that are revered by every religion, by most religions, specifically the monotheistic religions and the religions that we call the final religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. When it comes to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, the Jewish community don't accept him as a prophet. The Christian community don't accept him as a prophet. But we look at Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, then he's revered by the Jews, he's revered by the Christians, and also by the Muslims. So when we interact with people of Christianity and Judaism, one of the ways that we can bring about a link and a connection is to touch upon the topic of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And if we again channel the discussions towards Tawheed and the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will find that very relevant in all the religions. One other title that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in the Quran is Hanifa. And Hanif basically means to be in commitment to the One and the Almighty, without any slight shadow regarding associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Tawheed again. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the religion and Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasallam with this title, Hanifa. So for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. Hunafa is the plural of Hanif, which basically again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that no one has ever been instructed to worship other than the only one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way, Hunafa, that we don't associate any partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way, shape or form. So the status of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is very high and noble. One unique quality about Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Ibrahim kana ummah. That Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam was like a community. Even though he was one man, but the character, the morals, the dedication, and the commitment that he had was like an entire community. I may not have all the qualities that are required to be a great person. We all have weaknesses in some way or the other. But when we bring the community together, then all the individuals in the community, all the genders in the community, all the age groups in the community, they all have certain skills, they all have certain qualities that you put them together, it creates an ummah, it creates a community. And this is why we should never ever feel that no one is important in society. Every individual is important in the community, in the society. It's like you bake a cake or you have some great food. It requires certain ingredients, and every ingredient is important. The Arabs, they generally say, الملح في الطعام النحو في الكلام كالملح في الطعام, which basically means that even salt is so important that just like grammar is required for language, salt is required for food. So even you have all the ingredients, you have wonderful biryani, okay, but the salt is missing. It's not going to taste appealing. So in a similar fashion, every individual in the community is valuable, is important. And Ibrahim ﷺ was so unique that he had the qualities of an entire community within himself. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Ibrahim kana ummah. That Ibrahim ﷺ was equal to an entire ummah, equal to an entire community. So when it comes to the life of Ibrahim ﷺ, very briefly, he was given wisdom and he was given insight from a very young age. That when he saw evil and when he saw immorality, he immediately identified it. And this is something that we need to do. That we're living in a society where we see a lot of good and we see a lot of bad as well. And we have to always be amongst those people who channel ourselves towards good. No matter how difficult or how challenging the situation may be or circumstance may be, we have to channel ourselves towards good. And Ibrahim ﷺ, he had this insight where he could identify. This is the first step towards becoming a better person, is that we have to recognize good as good and we have to recognize evil and bad as bad. So Ibrahim ﷺ, from a very young age, he had this insight. That when he saw his own family, according to many scholars, this was his father, and according to some scholars, this was his uncle. So he was under the care of either his father or his uncle, and the name that comes up in the books of history is Azab, also mentioned in the Quran. So Ibrahim ﷺ sees that his own family is making idols. His own family is manufacturing from stones gods and goddesses, selling them and making money, and then worshipping those idols. And people are also worshipping those idols. So one episode that I want to refer to here and then mention a lesson is that he saw the evil, he wanted to address the evil. He could have said, you know what, all of you are misguided. All of you are going to hell. All of you are destroyed. And I'm the prophet, or I have the insight, and you know what, this is what it is. But he didn't take that approach. What did he do? Allah records his statements in the Quran. Who is he approaching? He's approaching his father. His father is on misguidance. His father is manufacturing idols and making money. And he sees how these idols are being made and how they are sold and how the people are in misguidance. And the root of this is his own family. So what does he do? He addresses his father. And what does he say? He says, Ya abati, lima ta'budu ma la yasma' wa la yubsir. And here I want to concentrate on the words that Ibrahim ﷺ is using. He's using the word Ya abati. What does abati mean? Those of us that know a little bit of Arabic, abati is the highest standard of respect when we address our parents. When you address your father, abati is the highest form of respect. So Ibrahim ﷺ is talking to someone that's on misguidance and is the root of a lot of evil in the community and the society. Yet he's using the best words for this individual. whether it's his father or uncle. And he says, "Oh, my respected, beloved father." And the tone he uses is very loving. The tone and the style that he's adopting, it's very full of wisdom. He didn't reprimand. He didn't, put them down. He didn't disgrace them. He didn't question them in the sense where they felt uneasy. He used words of respect. His tone was very appropriate, and he used logic. He said, "Look, do these stones and these idols have the ability to hear or see? They don't. So how can we worship something? How can I worship something that doesn't hear and that doesn't see?" So it's a simple point, but it includes everything in that statement. So here's the lesson, that we may see evil around us, we may see misguidance around us, we may be in difficult situations where it's difficult for us to practice Islam, but we learn from the Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ that if we have a positive approach, even in the midst of negativity, we could have an impact. We could have an impact if we use the right tone, we adopt wisdom, and we portray the message with gentleness and respect. If we can take this lesson from the life of Ibrahim ﷺ, we'll go very far in life. And we see that. One, we can say, no smoking. Or we can say, we would appreciate that there's no smoking here. Right? So it's the same message, but the way it's said, it's different. It can have an impact. Right? So we have to have wisdom when we deliver the message, when we communicate with others, and especially when we see negativity around us. And again, parents here, this is a very important point, that we're living in a society where authority is not given respect, parents are not given respect, elders are not given respect, and people feel, especially young people, myself as well, many a times I feel that the elders don't have the relevance, there's a gap, they don't understand our situations, they don't know what peer pressure means, they don't know what kind of things go on in universities and colleges, etc., high schools and schools. So then we tend to look down upon parents and elders in society. But the reality is that if we connect with them in a respectful way, we can learn a lot of wisdom from them, and they can also learn from us. And this is what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us. He praised the young ones, and he said, "There's no one like the young people who supported me at the time when I first propagated my message." The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he was given his message to become a prophet, the first people to accept his message were the youth. And that's why he praised the youth. He said, all these individuals, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Abbas, these were Abdullah ibn Umar, these were youngsters between the age of like 15 to 20. And they were the first ones who supported the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when it came to the elders, they were more attached to their position and their ways and their styles, etc., that it was difficult for them to embrace the new message. But then, when some of them did, then again he praised them for their wisdom, and he said the best people that are there in terms of morals and in character and ethics and ways and lifestyle, they are those who are the elders of the community even before Islam. So we learn again from here that we can learn from each other, and if we have a gentle approach with each other, we will do a lot of good. Ibrahim ﷺ created an impact that all religions embrace him and look up upon him, and his message is adhered to today as well. As we continue in the life of Ibrahim ﷺ, he faces a lot of challenges. He has to leave his hometown. He has to leave his people because they didn't agree with his message. So Ibrahim ﷺ, he migrates to various lands. And one of the lands he migrates to is what we call Mecca today. At that point, there was nothing there. And it was a barren land. There was no sign of survival. There was no way that he could sustain his life and his family's life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him. And he went there. And what was he told? He was told to build the Kaaba. He was told to build the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the place of worship. And some historical facts about the Kaaba, that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he selected stones from 5 different mountains to build the Kaaba. And he assembled the stones. And we know about some of the stories. There's Maqam Ibrahim there at the Kaaba as well. وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. Take the place or the station of Ibrahim, a place of prayer. When we complete the tawaf around the Kaaba 7 times, we pray 2 rak'ahs near Maqam Ibrahim if possible. If there are too many, the crowds are huge, then you can pray anywhere in the haram, in the masjid. But nevertheless, that Maqam Ibrahim is when the Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ was assembling and building the Kaaba. He could not reach the top, and he stood on one of the stones, and it elevated as a miracle for him. And his footprint is in that stone, and that's what the Maqam Ibrahim is. So Ibrahim ﷺ, he undertakes the task. He doesn't understand that who's going to come here, how are people going to get here, how is this the appropriate place for the Kaaba. He doesn't question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says to himself, this is a command of Allah, I have to adhere. So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he builds the Kaaba. After completing the Kaaba, he makes a dua. He says the famous dua, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. O our Lord, we have completed the task. تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. Accept it from us. You are the one that hears, and you are the one that sees, and you are the one that has the knowledge. So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam completes the task. He makes the dua and the supplication, and he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for acceptance. And part of this process is that he has to leave his family there. And he doesn't understand it, his family doesn't understand it. And part of the process of Hajj is that we make tawaf, and we do sa'i between the mountains, between the hills of Safa and Marwa. And this activity is basically imitating the family of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and particularly Hajar alayhi salatu wasalam. So Hajar alayhi salatu wasalam, she's the wife of the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. She was a great support to Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And she knew that when Allah commanded something, then there would never be loss. There would never be detrimental effects to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why she said, how can we be left here alone when there's no sign of survival? Is this a command of Allah? And Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam responded, yes. And she said, إِذَنْ لَا يُضَيِّعُنَا. If that's the case, then we'll never be destroyed. We'll never be wasted. We will have prosperity because this is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, the second lesson here is from this episode, is that a couple of things. Number one is that when Allah gives us a task, we should fulfill it, whether we understand it or not. We're living in a time where we question a lot, and there's nothing wrong in questioning. But after we've realized and we've understood that this is an instruction of the Almighty, and this is something that we should be doing, then we should engage in doing it, whether we understand it or not, whether it makes sense or not, whether it's appropriate or not. You know, some people came to Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, and they said that, they accused him. They said, you give preference to reason and logic over the verses of the Quran or the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whereas we're supposed to give preference to the verses of the Quran and the hadith. But it seems that you always give preference to logic. So in our deen is both reason and also the verses, the source text. So Imam Abu Hanifa then gave a few examples, and he said, if I give preference to logic over the verses of the Quran, then I wouldn't have issued these rulings. And he gave several examples. One of the examples he gave was the example of wiping over the socks. When we make wudu, if we have thick socks, then instead of washing our feet in wudu, we just wipe over the thick socks. So he said, look, What logically makes sense is to wipe beneath the sock, because that's the part that goes dirty. That's the part that we use mostly to walk. But what's my ruling? My ruling is you wipe on top of the sock. Why? Because that's the way the Prophet Muhammad did it. So if you're accusing me that I've given preference to logic or reason over the source text, then that's inappropriate, because there are several rulings where I would have used logic and said, no, you wipe beneath. But the reality is that the ruling is you wipe on top, because that's the way the Prophet Muhammad did it. Nevertheless, sometimes we may not understand the wisdom behind certain things, but it's the way it's supposed to be done, and that's what we learn from the life of the Prophet Ibrahim والسلام, and Hajar والسلام, that we may not understand certain things, but there's wisdom in it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing is that Hajar والسلام is so revered, and she's a female, she's a woman, and she made such an impact that every person who does Hajj, every person who does Umrah, their Umrah and Hajj is incomplete if they don't make the Sa'i. And what is the Sa'i? The Sa'i is imitating Hajar والسلام, a woman, a female who created an impact. And this was the family of the Prophet Ibrahim والسلام. So we need a support system. If I want to do good, I need a support system. I need people who will encourage me and motivate me. And this is the same thing that happened to Ibrahim والسلام. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they had partners, they had family members that supported them in their cause, and they understood. So this is the same lesson that we can learn from here, is that we need to create a support system. And this is why we have these type of programs, is that we get to support one another, we encourage one another, and we engage in doing all the good that we can. So this is another episode from the life of the Prophet Ibrahim والسلام, and a few lessons that we can learn. As we move on, the Prophet Ibrahim والسلام, is given challenging situations. He's told to sacrifice his son. He's told to go to the tyrant ruler of the time and give the message. He's told to, as we said, migrate to a place where there's no sign of survival. All these are difficult challenges. You know, if a parent is told to sacrifice his own son, right? It's something that is huge. It's immense. No one would want to even think about this, right? So Ibrahim والسلام, goes through tremendous challenges and difficult circumstances. And what does Allah say at the end of all of this? إِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنْ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested and put Ibrahim under trial, he completed those trials and he fulfilled those trials to the point where he was 100% successful. فَأَتَمَّهُنْ. He completed it. He fulfilled those trials. So Ibrahim والسلام, was committed. He was dedicated. So we may be under circumstances and situations in our lives where we have different challenges. We have stressful situations with parents, with family, with school, with peer pressure, so on and so forth. But if we are committed to the cause, then we'll always come back to the right path. We'll always be steadfast on what we need to do. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, give me some very comprehensive piece of advice. Give me some very comprehensive piece of advice that I don't need to ask anyone after you about. So the Prophet ﷺ told him two things. He said, be firm on your faith and stay steadfast. After you embrace Islam, be steadfast, be very firm. So we're living in a time where we are challenged in different ways. We're challenged in different ways. So we need to be committed and we need to be steadfast like Ibrahim والسلام. And finally, the Prophet Ibrahim والسلام, we learn from his life that there is hope. There is always hope. Ibrahim والسلام, wanted children. And he made lots of dua for children. رَبِّ هَبْ لِي مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ ذُرِّيَّةً طَيِّبَةً. These are our du'as in the Quran that give the indication that we're making dua for offspring. So Ibrahim والسلام's dua and supplication was, I want pious offspring. So it's mentioned that after 100 years, he was blessed with offspring. At the age of 100, his first child. Who was his first child? Ishaq. Right? Ishaq and then Ismail. And anyways, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the story in the Quran, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam with the child at the age of 100. And he never lost hope. He was hopeful in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah records this in the Quran that even his wife reached an age where it was impossible for her to have a child. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it possible. Allah made it happen. So what do we learn from here? That we can never lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter what we have done, no matter what kind of circumstances, no matter what kind of situation that we may be going through, there is always hope. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah makes a mention that it's impermissible for a believer to lose hope. It's just haram to lose hope. We can never be hopeless, no matter what we've done or no matter what circumstance we may be going through. And the reason being is Allah is very merciful. He knows what we're going through, and we need to build that connection with Him so that we can attain from His mercy and His blessings. Just like the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam had this hope, and he was blessed with the child at the age of 100. So these are episodes from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam that we can learn from, and we need to study his life. There was a youngster that actually came to me a few months ago, and he's saying that he wants to study the life of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So I gave him some recommendations, and then he came back to me and he showed me a whole thesis basically of the life of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, researched, very well researched from different books, etc. And he's asking me to review it, and I haven't completed the review, but it's very intriguing, and it's very the way he wrote it, etc. And hopefully it'll transform into a book. So this is how youngsters like yourself are doing great work in the community, in the society, and we need to constantly draw from these great role models that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to learn from. The reason why Ibrahim's story is mentioned in the Quran is that Allah wants us to learn from his life. Allah wants us to take lessons and derive these great, profound teachings from Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And as I said right at the beginning, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's entire religion, or the Sunnah, etc., it's all based on the teachings of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. It has a very strong link. And if the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam can learn from the Prophet Ibrahim, then you and I, as ordinary individuals, can certainly do so as well. And this is why when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ entered Medina, he made a dua. He said, "Oh Allah, this is my land now. I've migrated here. Right? This is my new land." The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was born in Mecca, but he migrated and he made his land, his homeland, a new land. Most of the prophets, they migrated. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, as he adopted Medina as his new home, as his new land, he made a supplication, he made a dua. He said, "Oh Allah, the same way the Prophet Ibrahim made dua and supplicated for barakah and blessings for Mecca, until today we have those blessings and the mercy in Mecca. Oh Allah, I make dua to you that you bless my city, this new land of mine, with similar barakah, in fact more barakah and blessings than that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam asked for." So again, we can learn from here how the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is drawing from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam for his personal life as well, and his community as well. So I'll conclude here. I think I've said a lot. If there are any questions at this point, feel free to ask, whether it's related to the topic or whether it's outside the topic.